Hello guys. Wow, you're on my book right now next to my flowers, and I think that's beautiful. Welcome. I haven't done a podcast episode in a really long time, but first things first, let's appreciate the little ceramic mug that I made last week. Isn't this so amazing? It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is ceramics place in Barcelona that I found, and I paid 20 to paint it, and I was some with my two friends, and I went with two friends, and we had so much fun. Okay, so today's episode, we're tackling high functioning anxiety, especially when it comes to living in our 20s, early 20s, as well as living abroad, because these are all things that go together one in one, and they really do impact each other in so many ways. So if you're new here, I'm 21, just moved to the third country I've ever lived in. Fourth. Spain? No. Yes, Spain, US, UK. No, 3. Why did I feel like, where the thing is? Barcelona feels completely different from the Canary Islands or Madrid, because I've lived in Madrid for 6 months. So it just feels like a completely different world. Maybe language factor, also cultural factor. Catalonia is very different from the rest of Spain. That's a debate that Spaniards have been having for a long time, but it's not really anything personal to them or to the rest of the countries. It just feels different, and personally I like it better. I'm not even Catalan, but I personally like it better. But anyways, everyone has their take on that. So back to the whole point. Third country at 21 years old. 2 of those countries, actually no, all 3 of them, because I grew up in Miami, but I also lived in Boston for 3 months by myself. So technically in all those countries I've lived by myself at some point, which is kind of crazy. I did 3 years in London, 3 months in Boston, 6 months in Madrid, and now I'm on almost 3 months already in Barcelona, but I'm doing a full year here. The original plan was to be here for 2 years, but I think things have shifted so quickly, and also we can talk about this in another time, but I have this problem where I can't stay still, but also I don't think it's a problem right now. I think if anything, it's amazing that at 21 years old, I am so capable of being I'm moving again next year. So I don't really see it as a problem. Maybe when I reach 27 or 28, I'll see it as a problem of, oh fuck, I can't really stay still in a single place. Maybe I should start figuring that out. But I think right now it's just working in my favor. Anyways, so how do we classify high functioning anxiety? I've kind of talked about this in another episode, but it was so long ago, so we're going to re-look at this again. So high functioning anxiety is this common need to be always doing something, to be always on top of something, to always seek validation when it comes to getting tasks done, to achieving goals, feeling accomplished only when you have a full schedule, or only when you're overwhelmed. Feeling accomplished when you're feeling also overwhelmed. Having that hand-in-hand experience. You can really see this in people when they are constantly seeking validation at work. So if they have achieved something, if their manager says something good to them and they feel they're their best just when their manager says something, or maybe when they get praised, or even at uni, if they get praised by a professor, or, constantly feeling like you have to prove yourself by proving that you are busy and that you're constantly doing something at the cost of your mental health, at the cost of burning out. This is especially important when it comes to the oldest daughters. I don't know if anybody has heard about this, but the oldest daughter complex is basically when the oldest daughter of the family, which is me, by the way, which makes so much sense, have this constant need to prove to themselves that they can be independent, that they can do everything by themselves, that they don't need any help. And this constant need of validation from other people that, oh my god, keep going, you're doing great, push yourself to the limit, there is no limit. This, ladies and gentlemen, backfires big time, especially when you're living alone or when you're living by yourself in another country far away from your family. This can also really affect the position that I'm currently in, such as being in your early 20s, trying to find a job, trying to feel like you have a really good stable job, trying to reach that specific salary that you're looking for at such an early stage in your life. And it's very common to feel like this, especially in your early 20s, because it's such a moment of transition. It's a moment where everything feels unstructured, especially when you graduate from university. I've realized that you really have yes, the typical route is to find a job. Like everything has been set up for you your entire life. You go to school, you go to work. If you have like an after school activity, then you go to clubs, or then you go to university, and then you even get a master's if you don't know what to do yet. And then after the master's, unless you get a PhD, you have to figure life out. No actual path that you have to follow. And technically would have realized, especially being at this stage, everyone told me, oh, there's no specific path, but there kind of is. Like, let's be real here, there is. You get a job, and then you jump from job to job, and that's the reality of it. I graduated early, so I've been working already, but most of my friends are right now about to graduate, and they're constantly posting on LinkedIn, got a job in New York, got a job in Boston, got a job in Miami, and I'm like, guys, I know I can't say anything because I did the same thing, but guys, what are we all doing? We're all like little military men or little rats chasing around everyone. We're just doing what we're told to be doing. We're constantly chasing everything, and I know the same thing that everyone did when everyone got their university degrees, or everyone got their university stats and where they got in. Everyone's just looking, comparing on where they got in for a job offer, or where are they going, or are they going abroad, or are they staying in the US? I actually got told by a lot of people in the US that I was being stupid by going to Europe and staying in Europe, which is really funny because for them, the end goal of finishing university is not to figure out what you want to do, it's just make a shit ton of money. And everyone was telling me that I was being so dumb for going to Europe because I wasn't going to make as much money as I was in the US, and da-da-da-da. And I was like, guys, I'm graduating at 20, at 21, I'm working. I just want to learn. Did it backfire on me because I actually do not really enjoy what I'm doing at the moment? Maybe. But at the same time, like, especially at the beginning, your focus shouldn't be on making money. And this is coming from a very privileged background. This is coming from a very privileged point. But if you are in the similar position as me and as my friends that are in a very privileged point where they're not necessarily in need of making so much money, that is not the point of the beginning of your 20s. Actually, this is the exact point right after university, if you didn't take that gap year, where you take that gap year. And this comes from someone that didn't do it, and I kind of regret it. I kind of regret not taking a gap year this year. I still can't, and I probably will start in February. At the same time, it's crazy, and I think it's baffling that okay, let me put it into perspective. For example, I went to uni in Europe, and most of my friends were from the Nordic countries, or they were from, I don't know, Germany, as an example. They were honestly from everywhere. Most of them took gap years. Most of them, post-high school, went, traveled, maybe even did an internship, maybe even went and did a solo project for a little bit, or just took it chill and took a year to figure out what they wanted to study and try different classes, so different things on the side. All of my friends, and I mean all of them, because my high school was extremely proud of the fact that they got 100% college acceptance. They even made one kid that didn't want to go to college, that was already running his business, already making so much money. They got him to enroll in community college. They pulled his mother aside and told him that he had to enroll in community college. This kid has everything figured out. This kid is still making a shit ton of money. This kid has had a very successful business at 17 years old. And he was forced by high school to enroll in a community college just so they could say that they got 100% college enrollment. So every single person that I know went straight into college. Every single person that I know, they're either applying for masters now, they already got into a master's, or they already got a job, or they're looking for jobs. I don't know a single person in the US who has even thought, even imagined the idea of a gap year, because they see it as a setback, because they see it as something that's not productive. And something that I've realized by having this mental breakdown in my life, where going back to podcasts and making videos, and then going back to maybe even figuring out what I really like, it's this is the exact moment where I should be doing something crazy. I saw this TikTok yesterday where they were like, why do you feel so left behind if you're always the youngest in the room? And then it just clicked. I am always, except this one guy that's 20. But me and this one guy, we're the youngest in the room. I was the youngest in the room at university. I was the youngest in the room in my internship. I was the youngest in the room in my current job. Why do I feel so left behind? I have 24-year-olds doing the graduate program in my job right now. They seem fine. They're actually doing pretty good. I went solo traveling for 2 years, one of them, and then got another master's, and then now he's here. And he's doing fine. And he's only 24. And he did whatever the fuck he wanted to do, and he realized that he liked this, and he's enjoying it, and, you know, he's thriving because he realized what he liked, and he lived life, and he found himself, and he had time to figure things out. And he's doing just fine. Just fine. So when I compare myself and I get all like anxious of, oh my god, like I really need to figure it out, I'm 21 years old, you know, I need to make up X amount of money by 25, X amount of money by 22, I'm like, do I? It's the American capitalism mindset in my brain that's telling me this. And I feel like growing up in the US, all you hear about, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but all I keep hearing about is, at 11 years old, I was already being talked about universities. I was already being talked about how I needed to study for my SATs. The SATs weren't even more than 4 or 5 years for me to take. I was already being talked about your college essay, your personal statement, where you're gonna work. Oh my god, what jobs will make you the most money? Just apply for diplomas or bachelor programs that will give you a shit ton of money and will get you into a really nice niche. I remember my ex-boyfriend, the first thing he told me when he got into this engineering program at a really nice university, he said, oh my god, by the time I graduate, I'm gonna be making $6,000 off the bat. I don't know if he is, because I have no contact with him anymore, but if he is, congrats to you, King. But the fact that that was your life goal is crazy. And this not just goes to him, this goes for anyone. Because I remember hearing so many of his friends and so many people that I also knew that went to that university, they were already telling me like, yeah, the minute I leave university, the minute I graduate, I'm going to make this amount of money. Okay, gang, good luck to you. Don't know how you're going to make it with this job market, but I really do wish you the best. And if he does, it's amazing. Good for him. But where was the freedom? Where did you find the freedom? When did you enjoy life? When did you find yourself? I can promise you he's not really emotionally stable. But anyways, where did you find yourself? It's in general. Like, I look at all of my friends in the US and I see them very stressed out. And I'm like, where did you guys find yourselves? When? It's not all about working, doing. More about living. Maybe this is the European mind really contrasting with my American side. But at the same time, where is the point of living if you're just chasing the system? Most young adults, including myself, we work really hard under pressure until we don't. We really do crash and burn at some moment. Actually, when I was in Thailand this summer, I met these 2 guys. They were both 29, right on the dot actually, and one had been the VP of a private equity, really famous one, but I'm not going to say anything. And the other one was a head of an English school. Props to him, at 29, that's pretty good. They had both quit their jobs. We met them both at an excursion. They didn't even know each other. We ended up making friends with both of them. They were just in the same position, kind of. They both had quit their jobs. They were both burned out. They were both American. They both went on a 4-month solo trip around Asia. One had been a month and a half in Bali. Now he was in Thailand for a month. The other one had been in Vietnam, and then he was in Bali, and we met him when he was in Thailand, and he was going to Nepal on a silent retreat. How come these 2, and one of them worked in San Francisco and the other one worked in New York? How come we met 2 people that had both reached the age of 29 and were both completely burnt out? They had reached really well high-paying positions. One of them came from a Hispanic background, very low income, and the fact that he had made it this far and had made so much money, and you know, for his immigrant family, this was like a great achievement and like the biggest blessing of them all. And he still decided that he needed to quit for his mental health. He had never taken a break. He had gone straight from his bachelor's to his master's, straight from master's to working, worked up all the way to the corporate ladder, reached that corporate ladder, made a shit ton of money. We're talking like almost $1 million a year. And he said, fuck this, I'm out. How come someone in that level, that young, that successful, decide that it was worth throwing that all out the window? Now we can say that he technically didn't, because he did reach a really good resume, so he can probably get a job. I mean, he's back in San Francisco. He said that he was going to start his own thing. He probably did do really well. I have to text him to catch up with him, but he's probably doing really well right now. But isn't it crazy, absolutely astonishing that this is not even the only two people I met in Thailand that were in the same position. I actually met another guy who was an accountant in Chicago who had also quit his job, worked his ass off for a year, saved up all of it, lived with his parents at 29 as well. Crazy that that's the number where everyone burns out. And he had taken off to travel solo for a year. He had spent 6 months in South America, and then when I met him at the point, he was on his second part of the trip, his other 6 months in Southeast Asia. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Imagine if we did that at the beginning. I mean, I was also listening to this podcast the other day about taking a mini retirement break every 2 to 3 years. I'll list the episode down below. It's from the podcast Money with Katie. But truly fascinating episode. I do think it is so important to think of rest as productive. Now, if you want to achieve burnout and be able to travel for a year solo around the world, please do so. Be my guest. They were having a blast. I'm not saying they weren't having a blast. They were clearly having a blast. But clearly when I told them I was 21 and I had just got my job offer and I was going to start a work and they looked at me like, enjoy life. If I were you, I would enjoy life. And I believe them. I really do. I believe that I should take the time and enjoy life because this is the moment to be quitting. This is the moment to be trying things out. Maybe start your own business. Maybe don't. Maybe travel for a year. Maybe don't. Maybe do backpacking. Maybe do volunteering in some random country. Help the homeless. I don't know. Something random. Start painting. Try to sell your paintings for some reason. Become a school teacher in Korea for a year. Go to Japan on some exchange matcha farming working environment. I don't know. Do something crazy. Something, when you grow old, do you want to tell your kids every single side quest you made? Because I think there is a healthy amount of side quests that need to be done every single year. We're going to do an exercise. For 2026, we're going to write down a list of side quests that we want to achieve by the next year. What are some awesome side quests? I always have this on my list every single year of doing one solo trip. I've not done it yet for this year. Last year I went to Portugal by myself, which is the first time ever in Portugal, so I went to a new country by myself. This year I was going to go to Paris by myself, but I think it's going to happen in February because it's getting really expensive. But always do a random side quest. I lived in the garage of my family and friends for 3 months. That was a random side quest. I fairly enjoyed that sometimes. I texted a random girl on TikTok that I found on my For You page to meet up for drinks, and I did. That was a random side quest. Do something random with your life. I would also say this is a random side quest. Buying tickets to Korea a month before going to Southeast Asia, that's a random side quest. And I highly, highly recommend that. Last month, I was sitting down. I was going to buy tickets to go to Peru for my boyfriend's friend's wedding. And then I looked at him and I was like, should we also just buy tickets to Brazil? And he was like, yeah. An hour later, we had Sao Paulo booked in Rio. That's a random side quest. Now, am I privileged enough to be like, yeah, I can do that random side quest? Yes, am I also going to be saving my ass off to be able to afford everything apart from the flights and the hotels? Yes. But again, it's a worth it side quest. Because it will not only... It'll be productive for my happiness. It'll be productive for me. It'll be productive for my future. It'll be productive for self-growth. It'll be productive for educational purposes. Learning from other people, learning from other cultures, exploring the world. I think my one mission in life, and this is why I think this is maybe the career path that I should take, is to see the world and learn from it as much as possible. Like when I think of my mission in life and why I'm here in life, I think of seeing it and learning from it. The amount of adrenaline that I feel by going to a new country and learning new things about it is chef's kiss, is untouchable. And I think that's my role and my goal. So why not spend my time trying to achieve that goal instead of behind a desk Now it's funny because I'm literally sitting at the desk where I work. But you get the gist, you get the point. Maybe prioritize something that you're actually passionate about on the weekends or your time off if you can. Maybe actually, if you really do hate it, quit your job and go traveling for 6 months. You don't need that much money to go traveling, you know? You can do, one of my closest friends went to Tanzania for 3 months last summer on exchange with World Backpackers, I think it was called, and she was a teacher, a business teacher. She does not study business, she studies like political science. She was a business teacher for a women's entrepreneurship camp in Tanzania. She was teaching like 12-year-olds about business and the basics of it, and you know, English as well. She was teaching English, and that provided her with housing, that provided her with food, because the housing that came with the job also provided the food. She only had to buy the flights there. Think smarter, not harder. Also, there's so many times where you can volunteer for money, not volunteer for money, where you can go somewhere and exchange stay for pay. To end this episode, what I wanted to say is there's such a shift when it comes to understanding what you want and what you need and what your role is, especially when you're trying to figure all this out, especially post-grad, than just trying to survive in the system, you know, like applying 30 jobs like crazy, trying to get the biggest paying salary job, trying to achieve all this by a certain age. Not worth it. I think the minute that you find yourself and you know exactly who you are and exactly what you need, maybe taking that time off, maybe taking that special trip, maybe taking that special class, maybe having that really difficult conversation by yourself that really makes you productive for your future. And maybe it's something that needs to be talked about more often. I feel like we started from a topic and then we evolved to a different one, but I think it went so well and so smooth, and definitely a talk that if a lot of people in the same situation as me really need to hear. So I'm kind of happy with how it turned out. Anyways, a blog is next. I think we're going to be doing this of podcast, blog. If anyone has any recommendations or anything else, would be lovely. I'm actually super excited because I've always done Final Cut Pro X and I became a master at that. And now I'm trying to learn DaVinci Resolve. So give me a second, I'm trying to figure out my editing style on this specific software, but I'm quite enjoying learning it. It takes me a little bit of time, but it feels like a puzzle. So it kind of feels like coding, if I'm being honest. But anyways, also I've realized that I will be posting on Fridays from now on instead of Saturdays. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, peace out.